Kubota makes a great tractor, but one thing that they're known for that's not a good thing is that they really limit the amount of lift that they give you with a loader. Now this is an L3901, it's in their L Economy series. So the L2501, now the 2502, the 3301, 3302, 3901, and now the 3902 all share the same frame. They all share the same loader, and they all share the same amount of lift. And that amount of lift, believe it or not, is not based on horsepower. Before I started really looking into it, I used to think I've got a 39 horsepower tractor. Surely I can lift more than somebody with an L2501. It's just not the case. It's the same loader. They're set to about the same pressure, and they can lift about 1,135 pounds at the pin right there. So the farther away you get from this pin, the less you can lift, and then you also have to add as part of that lift anything that's forward of this pin. So you look at this set of pallet forks here, it's a set of Land Pride pallet forks, and they probably weigh 300 pounds, 400 pounds. So if I have 1,100 pounds at the pin, I got a little bit less forward of that. Let's say I got 1,000 pounds, I take off 400 pounds for the forks. I'm left with about 600-700 pounds that I can lift. And I feel like this tractor is more capable and can lift more than that as far as it's built strong enough. It's Kubota and John Deere, the top two compact tractor dealers in America, or manufacturers in America. They sell more than anyone else. I think Deere's #1 and Kubota's #2. But they say the reason they limit their loader strength or the amount it can lift is because of the axle on the tractor. You're not often going to have, say, 2,000 pounds on your loader putting that stress on your axle. So Kubota and John Deere play it safe. They give you a loader that's very capable, but they don't push it to its limits. And I recently did a video on a TYM 2515, and their 15 platform, it's their old Branson platform, is essentially the same size as this tractor in length and width, and it comes in different horsepowers. And just like Kubota, the different horsepowers in that 15 series has the same amount of lift. So they've got a 25 horsepower tractor, it's a 2515, and their loader will lift 2,200 pounds, I think, something like that. And then if you get the next model with 35 horsepower or the next model with 48 horsepower, they all lift about the same. TYM and other manufacturers are really starting to sell their tractors based on the amount that they can lift, and I'm just not really sold on that idea. And the reason for that is that the frame of the tractor hasn't changed, but you're gonna lift more. And I know when I put the maximum amount on the front of this tractor, when I'm turning, when I'm negotiating any kind of obstacles or any uneven ground, it feels kind of unsteady. And I know I don't have ballast. Ballast doesn't affect how much you can lift. Ballast affects how much control you have over what is lifted. So I know that sometimes I'm a little unsteady because I may not have enough ballast, but I also couldn't imagine this tractor having 2,000 pounds that tall, because I've had plenty of ballast on the back, like a heavy tiller, and I've had what it can lift, which we've already said is about 700 pounds, and I've lifted it and it just feels real unsteady. So the reason for this video is I don't even think my tractor anymore can lift the stated amount of, let's say, 700-800 pounds on the pallet forks. I just feel like it's really weak, and I've been watching other YouTube videos out there where they're taking the same L series and they're hooking it to a scale. Before it's been modified, they are lifting, 1,000 pounds. They're lifting what they should be able to lift, and I don't think this tractor does that. So I went out on Amazon and I bought this. We're not sponsored at all. Bought this kit to check my hydraulic pressure, and it's by a company called Jailbreak Your Tractor. They sell a pressure gauge that hooks directly into your hydraulics on your loader, so you get a real nice pressure gauge. It already has the coupling and everything on it. And it also has graduation marks on here for a 2501, the BX, the B2650. They got a whole bunch of different Kubota tractor pressures already on the gauge. But the bottom line is the maximum amount that Kubota recommends for this tractor, I think, is 2,600 pounds of pressure, or 2,650. I'll throw a chart up here on the maximum amount. and it's set a little bit below that at factory. This tractor is a 2017, so it's about 7 years old. It's got 500 hours on it. I want to see where the pressure is sitting now, and then I want to take the shims that are included in this kit and put them in my hydraulic pressure relief valve and increase the pressure on this tractor and get it up to the maximum so it can at least lift as much as Kubota designed it to do originally. First thing we're going to do is come over here to this pallet of hardy board. It's concrete siding for our house. We're going to come in here and lift it because I know that the L3901 can barely lift this. I've moved this a couple times. It can barely get it off the ground, and that's with the tractor at wide open throttle. So we're just going to show you where we are at the starting point, kind of give a baseline and show you how much my tractor can lift now. We'll come back to this same pile after we put the shims in the hydraulic pressure relief valve and see if it can lift it higher or easier. Got it at 2,000 RPM. So that's as high as it can lift it at 2,000 RPM. Let's go wide open throttle. That's it. Surprised it's holding it, but that's our baseline test. However much this weighs, which is more than 1,000 pounds, obviously, it can lift it about 12 inches off the ground. Tractor wide open throttle, holding the loader lever down, which should make the boom lift up. So that's our baseline. We'll see what it can do after we adjust the pressure relief valve. So the first thing we're going to do is check our pressure, and we're going to release the pressure hopefully on the loader so this coupling comes off easily with minimal oil going everywhere. We'll cap that just to keep from making a mess. I believe these are what's called the Pioneer couplers with this little button here rather than the flat face coupler. Probably see a corresponding little end right there. So that end has to mate with that end to let the pressure flow. This should go right on there with no problem. It comes pre-assembled. You can buy all this stuff separately and put it together and get it much cheaper, but this is actually a high quality gauge. It's got the graduation marks for the different tractors, and it already has the coupling attached with a leak-free Teflon coated fitting right there. So I think we're good. We got that on. So now let's check the pressure. To check the pressure, you want the hydraulic fluid warm, and it should be warm because we use the tractor a little bit. We'll start up the tractor. We'll go to 2,000 RPM. All right, so this is at idle. And that looks like, I don't know, 2,100 pounds. You got 2,500 all the way over here. We'll do it again. You can see that the L2501 is that orange mark right there. We don't even get to the L2501 pressure. So now let's go to 2,000 RPM. So the L2501 looks like it should be set between 2,200 and 2,250. And that's about what we reached with this L3901 at its current setting. It looks like on this gauge, the L3901 setting about 2,350. And if I go to the literature they provided, they say the L3901 maximum pressure is 2346. So that's to stay within factory specs. So at 2346, I'm okay with being 24 to 2500. I'll put some shims in here and see what we can attain. And they're saying that 0.1 millimeter of shim will give you about 39 pounds of pressure. And they give you 3 different shims that account for 0.7, So 7 times 40 is 280. So if you add 280 to what we have right now, 2200 plus 280, that will be 2480. Yeah, if I put all the shims in based on what the literature says, I'd be at 2480. That would be real close to 2500, and I'd be okay with that. Let's switch now to the bottom of the tractor, pull out that hydraulic pressure relief valve and see what shims are in it, and then start adding shims. Now for the L series, the pressure relief valve is going to be underneath this block here where your loader lines are hooked to. But all the shims are the same for the B series, the BX series, the L series, the M series. And if you want a good video on how to do this on the BX, and I think the relief valve is on the back of the BX tractor, check out Lucas over at Peaks Peak Hobby Homestead. He did this. He actually did it with scales and everything and measured how much increase he got. He shows how to do a BX. But the procedure is the same. It's just that the valve is in a different location. I have what's called Zook's welding guards here around my filter because I'm in the woods a lot. I've got a forestry mulcher from Bamalite, and I just have a lot of stuff that comes up under my tractor. So I'm trying to protect my filter and this filter block. So I have this guard around here. So I got to take this guard off first. I got to take out one of my floor pan bolts, which is 7/8, and then there's a small bolt underneath. So 2 bolts, I'll have this off. We'll get that pressure relief valve out and we'll take a look at it. Now we got easy access to the hydraulic pressure relief valve. We'll pull this out, see what it looks like. You won't lose a lot of oil when you pull out that plug, but if you want to minimize how much you lose, on the L series, there's a breather hole for the hydraulic system right there. It's just a rubber hose. I'm going to clamp that off with a pair of vice grips, and that'll help reduce the amount of fluid that can come out. I'm going to clamp these vice grips right there on that hose. That way air can't get into the cavity of the oil system. I think the size for this is 22 millimeter, but 7/8 fits it perfectly. You can also change the pressure by the amount of torque that's on this. But mine seemed to be tightened all the way. Probably should have marked it. Should be minimal fluid. I've got a really clean drain pan here in case it's a lot. So it sits in there like that on top of that spring, and then under the spring is where the washers go, or the shims. And I've taken out the shims that came with it from the factory. There's no more shims in there. And I'm going to put it back in just to keep it from leaking oil. It's not dirty or anything in there. I've checked it, I've cleaned it. It does have that one O-ring there. Put that back in just to stop the oil from leaking. And to give you some idea how much oil was in there, or hydraulic fluid, it's not really oil. There's that much. I'd say there's a cup or so. So these are the shims that were already in there, and I don't know the thickness of them. That one's pretty thin. Those two seem to be about the same, and that one's pretty thin as well. And these 3 are included from the kit from Jailbreak Your Tractor, a 0.4, a 0.2, and a 0.1. So they give you 0.7 total. Thickest one is the 0.4. Looks like that's the flat one. I don't see much difference between that one and the Kubota one. Now these shims are pretty cheap by Kubota. If you want to know the part number, there's the part number for the 0.4. There's the part number for the 0.2. And there's the part number for the 0.1. Okay, to keep me sane, I did a little bit of math here off camera. But we came in stock at about 2200 PSI. The max for the L3901 is 2346. If you get approximately 40 PSI for every 0.1 millimeter, then all 0.7 millimeters of everything that comes in the kit will give you 280 more pounds of pressure. If I take my stock, which we measured, plus the 280, I come up with 2480. Now keep in mind, the L3901 maximum is 2346. So we'd be a bit over that. So I'd like to be around that number right there. I think I'm happy with that number. It's 10% over stock pressure would be 2700. So it's not even 10% over stock pressure. So I think we're going to put all the shims in and then measure it. And if it's under 2500 PSI, then we're going to go with that. case I have to take any out. My 0.1 shim is going to have 1 mark on it. My 0.4 is going to have a 4 on it, and they are flat with no holes in them. And then the 0.2, I've got a crossbar on it. But I'm also going to separate them. I'm going to have the stock shims stacked on top of each other with their one without a hole on the bottom. And then I'm going to start with my 0.2, my 0.4, and my 0.1 stacked. It's quite a stack of spacers we're going to be putting in there. I'm going to put them in with mine on the bottom. I'm not really sure how they went in there. All right, here we go. I think we're right at 2400 at idle. Let's rev it up to 2000 RPM. Well, that's almost perfect from what I said that I wanted, because at wide open throttle, we're at 2500 PSI. The max PSI recommended by Kubota is 2346, so let's call it 2350. So we are 150 above maximum recommended pressure by Kubota. If we did 10% over max specs, we would be 235 plus 2350. We will be well over 2500. I can't do the math real quick, but I can say we'll be over 2500 if we were 10% over, and we just proved that we're not that high. So let's go see what it'll lift at 2500 and then make a decision on whether we leave it that way or if we take one of the small shims out. I'm kind of excited to see how much it can lift. This is idle right here at 2500 PSI as opposed to the 2200-ish that we had starting out. I mean, it's all the difference in the world. This is at idle. I'm not even going to rev it up. That hardy board is concrete, and if you bend it too much, because I can't get the pallet forks wide enough, you'll actually crack it in the middle. But that's at idle. Way, way more lift capacity than I had before. So at idle, that's as far as it'll lift it. I'm going to go ahead and throttle it up to 2000 RPM. I think effortlessly it's going to lift it up, but we'll just see. That tire of the tractor came off the ground. So this tractor has never been able to lift off the back tires just by lifting up something too heavy in the front. If you had the maximum on the front, it might, bounce the tires, but it could never statically lift them. Watch this. 2000 RPM. I woke up this morning excited to make this video. I ordered that kit from Amazon that comes from jailbreakyourtractor.com, and I was waiting for it to get here, and I was waiting for a good opportunity to increase the lift capacity of my tractor. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into, but lots of videos out there and lots of people told me it was an easy process, and it really is. And the only regret I have is that I didn't do it sooner. I've known this tractor was not operating at its peak capacity as far as lift. It's a very reliable tractor, 500 hours, but that spring that's in there that puts tension against the relief valve, that degrades over time. And if they set it low at the factory, it's not going to get higher unless you do something about it. So I guess my spring over the years has gotten weaker, and I've just had less and less lift capacity to the point that it was getting to be a problem. I couldn't lift things I should be able to lift. That's going to wrap up today's video, folks. Hopefully you got a better appreciation of how your hydraulic system works, because I certainly learned a lot during this video as well. But until next time, y'all take care out there, and remember, life's short. tractor hard. And also subscribe. It costs you nothing. We'll catch you on the next one, guys.